to another episode of Queerantine, the podcast where we talk about all things queer, all things quarantine, and my guest and I spill some tea about our lives with a few fun little games at the end of the episode.
Hi, Kat. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I guess we were going to mention that today, the day that we're recording this, is May 17th, which is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. I'm so glad that I didn't fuck that up. And we were both talking about that because we both fall very much under that, as I guess all queer people do, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think as a bi-identifying person, it's good to be recognized, and I appreciate that because bi erasure is a real thing, and I still grapple with that myself. So, yeah.
For real. That's the tea. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't talk about my quote-unquote labels in the episode with Zach, so I guess I'll just out myself to the world, which is fine. I identify as a pansexual non-binary person, and I don't give a flying fuck about pronouns. I've recently asked a few friends, I guess, to start calling me they, them, just to try it on, see how it feels, but it doesn't really, I don't know, you can call me she, her, that doesn't bug me at all either, so.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah, I feel like in reflecting on that, it seems like using they, them pronouns wouldn't really impact you as much as it would impact you being a general you. In your personal life, maybe just within groups, I feel, because yeah, so it might just be that you haven't had an opportunity to try them out really for real, I guess. Not that it's not real with your friends, but
yeah, I know what you mean though.
Isolation just wouldn't be conducive to really being called they, them. I don't know. Maybe I'm just speculating.
I mean, Zach referred to me as they, them in the podcast episode that he was on, which was I didn't even click until after we were done recording. But I think it just, I don't know, it's just kind of solidifying in me that pronouns don't really matter so much to me. Call me whatever you want because I identify as it, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah. Maybe because it's the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia, I'll talk about how I was raised to understand bisexuals. And by that, I mean that they don't exist. I think the first time I heard the term bisexual and was had it explained to me what it meant was I was probably in junior high. So anywhere between the ages of 11 and 14 probably. My parents liked to listen to talk radio, which I hated. And now here I am starting a podcast.
I was just going to say, now we're just contributing to podcasting. Yeah, so right? Funny.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so whatever station we were listening to in Calgary, Alberta, which is a very conservative place, they were talking about bisexuality, and I don't remember the context that the radio station was mentioning it in, but I definitely remember my parents talking about how it wasn't a real thing, and that whoever says that they're bisexual, they're actually just confused and they're either experimenting with the same sex and they're actually straight, or they're gay and they're not willing to own up to being gay, basically. Which I never could wrap my head around because, obviously. But I guess, yeah, when my parents said that, I was like, no, but why couldn't people be attracted to boys and girls? And at that point in my life, I was not aware of trans people or non-binary people, so I thought that there were only the two sexes and genders. But I was young. So I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that, like, why couldn't you be attracted to both? And then proceeded to talk myself out of that fact for myself for the next 15 years. I guess I think that just really shaped my not coming out for as long as it did. Was, well, it doesn't exist, so I can't be that.
Right.
Bisexuality is real, people.
Yes, it is real. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's I think that our like internalized homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, all the phobias when it comes to sexuality, like it runs deep and it's really hard to unlearn that stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think all of us grapple with that. And
sure.
Yeah, even like now we both live in a place that's like really gay friendly. There's a huge LGBTQ plus community. There's lots of like support. We have lots of gay friends. But yeah, I still grapple with the phobia being internalized within myself like all the time.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Even after I came out and like realized my attraction to all of the other genders, but like I really fell heavily into being attracted to women and like AFAB folks. And then I really talked myself into, for a long time, being like, oh my God, am I a lesbian? And I'm just kidding myself. Because that thing that my parents said, like, ran through me for a very long time. And like, I'm good now. I'm like mostly over it, I think, with lots of therapy and help from friends. But there was a good period of time there where I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm not pansexual. Maybe I'm just a lesbian and I'm just like holding on to, I don't know. And then I guess we can talk about like straight passing privilege, which I hate that I have, but
yeah, I mean, I am the poster child for that particular thing. I think for a while at least. I think I mean, clearly we both still have straight passing privilege. But when I realized that, well, I guess, yeah, when I came out, I was in a long-term relationship with a man and just kind of continued on with that relationship, and it was not like a big deal at the time. And I also just like was already in a relationship, so I didn't have this conversation with all of the people in my life because it wasn't a big enough deal to me that like I felt as though I needed to quote unquote come out to all of my family and friends. I just felt as though it was important to like discuss that with my partner at the time, and then I forgot about it, and well, not forgot, but like just left it for interpretation. Like I didn't care whether people knew or not. And so yeah, for me that was like part of both like just being okay with like my sort of internalized biphobia, and just being like, well, I'm already in this like hetero normative relationship, and like it's fine that everyone just assumes that I'm hetero. So yeah, so I've had to go through a process in the last couple of years since breaking up with that person, and yeah, it's almost like coming out again and coming out a million times, as everyone has to do, to each person in your life. And it's interesting because I've really resisted identifying as queer until about a year ago. Because I just felt like I didn't fit in to that category. I didn't feel like I was queer enough, which is
my
also
God.
like
I feel that.
Yeah, it's just like part of the biphobia and like the erasure within the LGBTQ plus community itself is also like pretty real.
Yeah.
So I think that having more and more queer friends and just being part of the community here, I think it really helped me like realize that I I do exist as a bi person, and I can be a queer bi person, and I can identify within that category, even if someone might not think being bisexual is a real thing. So.
Yeah. And I guess I'll share another quick little, it's a very short story, but it ties into the not feeling like you belong in queer spaces because you're not queer enough. And before I started like my physical transformation of cutting off all my hair and shaving my eyebrows and like really like coming into my own that way, and like wearing the clothes that I wanted to, I was very, very straight passing. And I remember going into a gay bar in the village, and I hadn't met up with, I think Zach and Clay were running late because, like, of course. But I just worked around the corner, so it was really easy for me to get there on time. And I walked into the bar, and I was kind of just like wandering around, and this group of gay men, or at least that's how I perceived them to be, saw me off in the corner by myself, looking a little uncomfortable because I always am when I'm by myself in groups in public. And I overheard them because I have incredible hearing. It's unfortunate sometimes, actually. And I overheard them saying, "Ugh, when are we going to stop letting straight white women in here?" And it was after I had come out, but like recently after I came out. And it like threw me into like this existential crisis of like, oh my God, am I even like, I shouldn't be here, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. But it for sure, like, it totally is a thing that exists within the gay community, for sure. Like, yeah. And man, like, I am definitely cisgendered. I present as such, and like, yeah, those feelings I can really relate to as well, because like I totally just look like a straight girl. And like a lot of my friends are men too, so like there are assumptions that people make all the time, and yeah, you know when people are judging you, you can feel it
for sure.
So yeah. But you know, like we're all battling those things within ourselves, and like just being I don't know, loud about who we are helps. You know, it helps other people that are like maybe uncertain realize that like it's okay to like, you know, not fall into like whatever category you think you should. You know, you can change that. You can test out new ways of living and figure it out for yourself. Even when you're older, like we're like I'm over 30 now, and I'm like
so
just in the last couple of yeah, I guess. I'm further into my 30s.
I'm 30, so I guess I'm not over 30.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just funny because like it feels like I'm too old to be like coming out to people all over again, because I like I feel like I figured it out for myself like years ago, but then I realized that no, like this process of no longer being in a hetero relationship is like, man, you just got to come out to everybody again and again and again.
Yeah. Well, and then there's going to be the fun times where people are like, oh, so you're a lesbian now. And it's like, no.
Yeah. That's some more bi erasure, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
just to clarify for everybody, bi people are bi people. If they are in a same-sex relationship or an opposite-sex relationship, they're still bi. Just because they get into a relationship, their attraction for the whatever sex that isn't that of their partner still exists. So stop.
Yeah. Also, like, Google these terms and figure out what all of the letters mean in the LGBTQ plus acronym, because you might learn something.
Totally.
I feel like I'm getting preachy.
No, that's totally. I mean, the podcast is called Queerantine. Like, how are we gonna do queer topics without being a little bit preachy to the cishet normative people in the world?
It's true.
Yeah.
Although I will also point out that using the word preachy is problematic because it's
for sure. Yeah.
Religiously based. But
yeah, well, things happen. Yeah. So I guess when we come back, we will talk about the favorite ways that we are passing our time in quarantine. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'll share one thing that I've been doing to pass the time in quarantine, because if I shared them all, this segment just wouldn't exist for future episodes. So I've been playing a lot of video games, actually, lately. I've been alternating. I've been playing an absurd amount of Animal Crossing. But when I'm not playing Animal Crossing, I've been alternating between like Fortnite and Crash Bandicoot, Spyro or Spiro or however you can pronounce that one. But that one makes me really motion sick, so I've been not playing it as much. But anyways, yeah, I've been playing a lot of video games. Because dissociation is real, and it's fun to get into another world.
Heck yes.
Yeah. What have you been doing? What have you been doing to pass the time?
Yeah, oh my goodness. I can't say that I have been playing any video games. I'm one of the lucky people that also was able to remain working. So I'm still just working my regular job. But one thing that I have been really enjoying through this is to keep me sane, really, is the fact that I have a dog and I get to walk him a couple times a day. It gets me outside, which, I mean, is risky in some sense, especially because I live downtown of like a metropolis city and I can't go outside without seeing other people. But I think that has really been what's kept me sane, because I really do rely on my social interactions and my friends and being able to like see them and touch them and embrace them. So it's been a tough time. So that's one thing that's keeping me going.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I miss your dog so much. Like, I miss you too, but at least I get to like have conversations with you, whereas my main interactions with Onus was always just like letting him put his head on my lap and just like absorbing the love from that beautiful dog.
He is basically the embodiment of joy in a creature. So I know. I apologize that I can't share his love with everyone, because
that's been a really hard thing for me. The only time I leave my apartment apartment building, I guess, is to go grocery shopping, and everyone's out walking their dogs because everybody's home, and I go like first thing in the morning, so obviously all these dogs are up and going for like their morning walks and pees, and I just want to pet them so damn bad. So bad, but I know, and like you can see the sadness in the dog's eyes as they're walking by all the people that would normally stop to pet them, and it just breaks my heart to not. I'm so glad that I have a cat at least, so that I can get like some fur baby love, but like walking past all those dogs and not being able to pet them, oh my god.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that. Yeah, I take him to like there's a little park that is pretty close by to my house and it has a schoolyard in it. So since the kids aren't in school, it's kind of become like an unofficial neighborhood dog meetup place. So it's kind of funny because a lot of people will go there and then it's funny to sort of see who will touch other people's dogs and who won't. But I've also had to adapt because my dog is very friendly and he's hard not to touch when he walks up to you because he's very large. And so, yeah, so I've had to adapt and give him a bath like virtually every day because of COVID, which is, it's tough, but again, like it's just a thing you do because you just adapt and
for sure.
You know.
For all the listeners at home that don't know how big Kat's dog is, I love that, by the way. Kat's dog. Oh God, I'm a loser. He is a Black Lab Great Dane mix, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah,
he's a big boy.
He's definitely got the Great Dane size.
Yeah, I mean, he's really tall. He's like the height of like a female Great Dane, but he's thick.
Yeah.
He's a thick boy. He weighs 150 pounds, which is a lot of dog. So, yeah.
Yeah. He's huge, but like would never hurt a fly.
He's so loving and gentle. Was in danger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him. I can't wait for this to be over. I mean, okay, so I talked about this in the last episode with Zach of like how I want this to be over so bad so I can see and hug my friends and like do all of our weird like friend things that we do with each other. That sounded far more sexual than it should have. Oh, that might get it.
Embrace the weird. We're all weird. That's why we're friends, really, because we're both weirdos.
Yeah. No, facts. But I also don't want it to end because that means that, like, I mean, we're not going to go back to normal right away, but, like, the way that the world is organized, we're probably going to be going back to, like, a pretty close normal to what we had in the before times. And I don't really want that. So I just kind of live in this beautiful space. I don't know.
I agree. I think it's an opportunity for us to reflect and be able to see where we could change the system that we currently hold as far as like capitalism even. Like we have to reflect on the ways it wasn't working for us. But I do agree that it's just probably going to go back to the way it was, where we sell our labor for money that we work very hard for and have little reward over, because it's very expensive to live in Toronto.
Yes.
And the wages don't necessarily reflect that. And there's a very, very large wealth disparity in this city. And it's quite obvious.
Yeah.
If you look for it, yeah.
If anyone hasn't noticed, both Kat and I, our area of study is sociology, which is why I think this episode is as deep as it is.
Yeah, I mean, we think about inequalities all the time because we studied it for so many years. Yeah. But it's important. I don't know. Hopefully your listeners will enjoy getting deep into these issues and maybe, you know, doing their own research afterward, because a lot of these things are, they run deep and there's lots of information out there for sure.
Yep, for sure. And we would never be able to cover it all. Let's talk about queer things.
Yes, very fun.
And quarantine things, because that's everybody's life right now.
Yeah, legit.
And if it's not your life, start having that be your life, because this needs to end.
Yeah. The more people abide by the rules, the less amount of time that we have to just stay home.
Yes. And on that note, we'll be back with some games.
Woo!
Welcome back to Queerantine. I'm your host, Jenna, and this is my guest, Kat.
Hi!
In this segment, first we'll play a little game, the Tea for Two, and then we'll also play a little twisted version. Nope, that's not the right wording. But sure, twisted version of Never Have I Ever. But not twisted in the way everyone's thinking.
Or maybe it is.
Oh, okay, so in Tea for Two, Kat and I get to each ask each other a deep, hard-hitting question or a fun, embarrassing question, whatever we've come up with. She doesn't know the question I have for her, and I do not know the question that she has for me. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So, my question is, what has been the most rewarding and the most challenging thing that you have come to face being an out advocate? The intention behind the question is, like, you came out and are also fairly involved in the queer community here in our city. So I'm mostly just wondering, like, since coming out, has there been any major challenges or shifts or rewarding moments in your advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community?
Ooh, interesting. Has there been shifts since coming out? Ooh, that's interesting. Because I've been advocating for the queer community before I even really knew that I was. When I was younger and the government was debating whether or not to allow marriage equality, I was sitting in my grandparents' living room and overheard all of my aunts and uncles and parents having a debate as to whether or not it should be passed, and if it is, whether or not it should be called marriage, because, you know, the old gross adage of marriage is between a man and a woman, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. And I remember little me storming into the kitchen and being like, no. Yes, they need to have equal marriage because love is love and marriage is just about love. And secondly, of course it needs to be called marriage because if you love somebody, who the fuck cares? Anyways, so I had this whole big rant that I'm too old to remember exactly what it was now. But so I think that was probably one of my earliest memories of being a queer advocate, long before I came out. And long before I even knew that I was advocating for the queer community, but I was. So since coming out, I think people take me a little bit more seriously now that I have a queer identity, or I guess two queer identities. I'm like more valid, and to a lot of people, I think now that I'm out. Because before I was just like, you know, a straight girl. How could you possibly know the complexities of the queer experience, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's one thing that's kind of definitely shifted is people actually listen to me now. Sometimes, because, you know, I'm straight passing and I'm in a polyamorous, hetero-ish relationship. So, like, I don't know, there's still people that are like, no, you're not queer enough to speak on behalf of queer people, which is one challenge. And then the other, I guess another challenge is, I don't know if this feeds into my queer advocacy or not, but just like the struggles of having conversations about queer issues with family. Enough said there. We all know what that's like, right, people?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get too deep into that because I don't know who all is going to listen to this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. We all have family that is problematic, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you
mean,
for
if any, yeah, no problem. If any of my family is listening to this and you're questioning whether or not you are said problematic person in the family, one, probably because you're questioning it, and two, maybe just come talk to me about some stuff and I'll educate you on some queer issues. How about, yeah.
I love that.
It's true. Like,
Simultaneously.
if you're wondering, if you hear someone talking about a person and you don't know if you are that person or not, likely you are probably that person.
Yeah.
There's some underlying shit there that you're like, oh, why are they talking about me?
Yeah, legit. That's I think a big reason why white guilt is such a like contentious thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
guilt.
people that are like offended by other white people saying that white people are the worst in whatever form that may take, man, if you feel guilty about that, that means you are guilty.
For sure. Just to clarify, Kat and I are both white.
Yes.
And we both fully acknowledge that white people are the worst.
Yeah, white people are trash most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, like, we ourselves as individuals, each of us, me and Kat, try our best to not be white trash people, and like, that was not the correct phrasing.
We try not to be garbage people in general.
That are white.
Yeah, we're I think the fact is that we've done work and we've done, I mean, and when I say work, I mean like the self work that you need to do to unlearn a lot of the things that are sort of passed down within our like white like families in general.
For sure. So. Yeah, I mean, it falls under everything from like sexuality to race to gender to
those class issues, even
class to, everything. Like, not all rich people, not all white people, not all men, not all straight people. It's like, yeah, you know what? But if you're saying those phrases, then you're one of the people that are not. Like, if you, like, we've all had experiences of being prejudiced against any other group of people in our lifetime, and it takes a lot of hard personal internal work to come about. One of, I think, my favorite things that I ever read or heard, I can't remember which one now, in my many years of study, was the first thought that you have that pops into your head is what you've been socially conditioned to know and understand. And the second one that you think is how you actually think and feel.
I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah. So your first one is like what you've been socialized into believing based on all of the biases that exist in our world. And then the second one, if you correct yourself, that's the one that really matters.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, and I think just as like a little last piece of information, I don't want to pretend as though like we are done doing the work that we've been doing. I think it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And so I just don't want to like pretend or like place us as like different from the other white folks in the world, like for your listeners.
Yeah.
Because we're still learning and unlearning
Absolutely.
our conditioning as well. So
yeah,
sure. But let's have a conversation about it. Like that's my jam. I just like want to talk to anybody that has questions.
Yeah, I will absolutely talk to anybody that ever has questions about anything. Ever. About anything. I'm a fucking open book. Like, you will never ask me a question that I'm like, ooh, that's too personal, or that's off limits.
Yeah, I would say the same for myself, although I come off as like a pretty private person because I think I am one. And and I'm really introverted, but like, man, if you ask me a question, for sure I'm going to answer it and be as open as possible, for sure.
For sure. All right. I have a question for you now.
Sure.
This is going to be a thinker for you.
Oh, no.
So I want to know, what is one fear that you know is holding you back in life?
Ooh, that is a really good question.
It can be more than one.
Yeah. Well, I think the short answer is like my tendency towards being like a perfectionist. It makes me not want to do the work. Whatever work that may be, whether it's like my own personal like self-growth work or like literally work for my job or my like recreational thing that I want to do, which is start a podcast. Because that's just sort of been put on pause for now, both out of fear, I think, of all of the things that surround that, and also just because of my life right now. It's very busy with my like job. So yeah, I guess that's one thing. And like bringing it back to sort of the topic, I think that I do still have fear around being an unapologetic queer person, in the sense that I feel like I don't know how to approach and or date or whatever, start relationships with women or non-binary folks, other queer folks, I guess, because I've never been in one. I've always been in hetero relationships. So yeah, so I think that there's like a fear around that, and I still have some self-work to do around that, because I have noticed, I guess in the last like year or so, when I've been starting to date again, since my last breakup, I just, it's easier for me. It's more comfortable for me to like pursue men that approach me, because they're the ones that approach me, and I'm like, well, okay, let's try it out.
Yeah.
So,
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with other queer folk, I don't know, the rules are so different. Like there's like this, I mean, okay, not that there's any rules ever with any dating ever, but except for the ones that are established between the people in the relationship and or relationships. But there's like this unspoken expectation for hetero folks and people that wind up in hetero relationships, even if they are queer, that the man is always the one that's supposed to like do the initiating. So for us as AFAB people, trying to approach other AFAB people, it's like, who does what? But I mean, neither of us, I think, were really exploring like the dating realm super heavily before lockdown happened. So, and now there's just like this whole other set of really fun obstacles that have come up, because no one can be near any other people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I legit was like planning on attending more queer events. Like, I had a bunch in my calendar to go to like in March, but then the lockdown happened and I just was not able to attend a bunch, and that was like sort of my way of putting myself out there and like being more comfortable and like trying to figure it out for myself. as someone who is, looking to date other folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so it's like, it's been an interesting time because, now there's like safety issues to be considered. And I feel as though I would probably be more comfortable like just chatting on whatever platform, like text or video call or phone or whatever, for a much longer time before actually like being physical with someone, which is like a strange thing to have to adapt to.
Yeah. Quarantine, eh?
Right?
Queerantine, eh?
Oh.
And with that, I think we'll head into our last little segment. Never have I ever. With a twist. So for this one, basically, I find a fun never have I ever phrase, I guess, on the interweb, and I read it out loud, and Kat and I both say whether we have or have not done said thing. And then we can chat about it. Share a story if there's a story. So today's Dear Kat is never have I ever had to get stitches.
Hi, this is Jenna from Post in Editing. Just here to give you a little content warning. The next segment, there is a little bit of a story with Kat injuring herself and needing stitches that you may or may not want to hear. It's not too gross, but I figured better safe than sorry with putting in a little content warning here. If you're not into hearing that, then you can skip the rest of the episode, basically.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have. I moved out of my parents' house into a house in Calgary, and I did not have like butter knives yet, and I was trying to put something into a container, and I was using like a steak knife or like a pointy knife of some kind to like push this thing into a container. I don't even remember what food it was, but it slipped and like stabbed through my hand. And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's totally fine. And then like an hour later, I was like, yeah, no, that's like really deep. And like I could see the fat coming out of my hand through. Yeah. So I was like, I probably need stitches. So yeah, I had to go to the clinic that night. It was like the night after I moved into this new place. So it was a whole thing.
Nice. So yes, I have also had stitches once. I've only ever had to get stitches once, for like accidental reasons. And I was doing a charity bike ride. And have I told you this story?
Yeah, I've heard this story, but please do tell.
Yeah, so I was doing a charity bike ride, and I was so excited. I had trained for this bike ride for like, oh my God, I don't even like months. Months I trained for this. It was a 2-day bike ride. I can't remember what the kilometer count was at the end of it, but like it was basically you biked for like a full day, camped somewhere, and then biked to the start line again on the second day. And I made it 3 checkpoints in. 2 where I actually like pulled into the check stop and like had my like rest. And then on the way to the third one, I was like, I gotta pull over for some water. I'm so thirsty. And I kept talking myself out of it, and I was like, no, I can make it. And then at some point, I don't know why, but I decided, nope, I'm gonna drink some water right now. And I signaled, and I started pulling over to the side, to like it's not a curb because it was on like a highway in the mountains.
Like just the shoulder.
Yeah, the shoulder of the road. And I guess the guy behind me didn't see me signaling or pulling over or slowing down. And I don't really even know what happened. It's kind of like fuzzy, but all I remember is I heard somebody scream, "Look out!" And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground. So I only was able to piece the rest of it together based on, because I was wearing a white bike shirt at the time, so I saw the tire marks up across my back. But I remember having to like wrestle myself out between from between the two bikes, because his went up my right leg and over my left shoulder. And pinned me between my bike and his bike. So I wrestled myself out, saw this guy lying like 5-10 feet away on the ground, face down on the ground. I was like, oh shit, I just killed a guy. But I walked over to him and was like checked him out. I had also been through quite extensive first aid training. So like I was doing all the checks and making sure he was okay, and he got up and walked away. He actually rode off on his bike. So all was good with him. Mm-hmm. But as I was checking on this man, everyone else is surrounding me, being like, oh my God, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. They're like, you're bleeding. And I looked down, I was like, it's a scratch. It's fine. No big deal. Well, then I looked a little closer. And turns out I couldn't get back on my bike because I was bleeding and had not even close to a bandage that would have been big enough to cover the gash on my elbow. So they picked me up in their little van and took me to the nurse's station at the next checkpoint, where they were like, I think you're gonna be okay. And I looked down closer and I was like, that's gonna need stitches. They're like, no, you should be fine. And I was like,
no.
So then my parents, who were actually waiting for me at the next check stop with signs and everything, got the call and came to pick me up from where I was and took me to urgent care in, it was either High River or Okotoks, because that was the closest little township to wherever the hell we were in the mountains. And that, turns out I did need stitches, but like I was so adamantly arguing that I was gonna get back out on the trail the next day and finish the ride, that like we didn't even pick up my tent or anything. We just I was like, nope, I'm gonna get back out there. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. And then I woke up the next morning.
Oh my gosh, she must have been so sore.
I could barely get out of bed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But I think the adrenaline and not knowing what actually had happened, just fully, I didn't really realize that I had just completely gotten run over from head to toe by another cyclist. That's my I got stitches story.
Wow. Yeah. Happy Queerantine.
Happy Queerantine.
Yay. Making the best of a weird and awful situation.
The entire goal of this podcast, yes.
Yeah, legit.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, take care, Jenna. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Queerantine. As always, you can find me on Instagram at generation.q. That's at GENNARATION.q, just the letter Q. And you can also find me on Twitter at QueerantinePod1. That's the numeric number 1, not the word. And I will see you next time in Queerantine.